Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been feeling worse.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Dad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here for another ATS live stream. We were talking Delphi case. I know a lot of people are talking this case because there's just been a lot of chaos going on. I'm trying to navigate on what I think is going on in this case, but there's just so much chaos that I'm going to have a hard time kind of collecting my thoughts. But I have to talk about this with you guys because it's just a lot of questions going on in my head ever since the leak, and the questions just keep coming. So we'll get right into it. First off, I want to say hello to Adrian and Carol freaking Claus, Alex Erickson, hello, Nana Banana, hello, Pointer Lover. Thank you so much for the PayPal. I got it and I was just stunned. So thank you so much and Merry Christmas to you. And yeah, hi Myra R. Basically, I'm trying hard to figure out why Mitch, the guy who was arrested for leaking this information, and when I say information, it's come out and it kind of has come out like slowly, but no one's really been paying attention to this part of it. Not only was it crime scene pics that were leaked, but apparently it's pages of the discovery. Now that is super problematic. There's other cases, and I know other channels have talked about it, where certain states will release crime scene images even before a trial. So I'm not trying to say that that part of the leak should be downplayed, because obviously that's horrible, especially with these girls being minors. But what's more unsettling to me lately is the rumor that kind of has been circulating since this leak first started, which has been kind of brought to our attention on Facebook and some of these Facebook groups, that pages of the discovery have been leaked. Now, we've heard certain YouTubers, I know for a fact Gray has insinuated he has seen more, and Richard Allen is the guy, and if you knew what he knew, you would feel that way too. And they've made little hints like that, and then it's just been driving me crazy, because it's like, you can tell me all day that you have the facts, but until I see it myself, like, who knows how I would interpret it compared to how you guys would. And hello, Seth and Chase, everyone else who's here, K-Braze. Hi, Scottish Queen. I hope you're feeling better and Katie's feeling better. Pretty much, I just am stunned that none of these discovery pages have been leaked, but they've all been referenced and talked about that they've been leaked. And mind you guys, these photos of the girls, not that anyone needs to see them or wants to see them, but they're still circulating. There are people, who have them. But pretty much what I want to go back to is something that Criminality, who I moderate for, and we, share a lot of our information. We kind of stumbled on a comment from somebody in one of the Facebook groups, and they're talking about Mark Roberts, who, of course, everyone right now is aware that is part of this leak. Apparently, they're the ones that leaked it, or he gave it to Murder She, and they all decided we got to call the or notify law enforcement about this. Whatever. Anyways, let me just read this comment. Again, this happened right when the leak first kind of took place. So I won't say her entire name, but her first name is Sarah. And again, we don't know if these are these people's real names or just what they use in these Facebook groups. Says Mark Roberts received the photos and documents prior to the judge, prosecutor Baldwin, and Rosie email started, I believe, on October 6th, there were different emails that were sent to different people. Like mine and Mark's had approximately 20 attachments. Some emails only had 4 or 5 attachments. Some emails had encrypted emails. Also, again, I am encouraging anyone that is in possession of any of these photos or documents to do the right thing, report to ISP, and destroy the photos and documents. The investigation is still going on, and you can certainly could be charged with interfering in an criminal investigation. Also, Judge Gull can pull you into a court hearing and put you under oath. Richard Allen deserves a fair trial, and if removing one team of attorneys with another is Judge Gull's duty to protect, continuing on another page, Richard Allen's process to a fair and impartial trial, it should not be tried in the media. It's going to be difficult with each passing day that to find a jury of his peers, trial and a jury from an entire different area than previously ruled. And then Teresa chimes in from Criminality. How do you know he didn't get the photos till the 3rd? And the Sarah person never answered. Now, we've kind of talked about the dates and how this person said they got it on this day and this person said, well, no, I got mine on this day, and no, it was early, all that. Let's put all that aside. Let's put aside even the Odinism theory, because all this stuff was kind of thrown at us in these last few months. So since September, we've been going around in circles with this Odinism thing, and now then the leak happened. Who had the leak first? Who got this and that? I'm like trying to weed all that cloud of dust out of the way, and I'm trying to see things clearly. And here in her first sentence, Mark received the photos and documents. So we've all heard about the photos, but the documents part is what is really concerning me. And then it says, some of them had 20 attachments, others had 4 or 5. And it says, anyone in possession of these photos and documents, please turn them over to ISP, blah, blah, blah. So we know that some people have said, I've seen 7 pictures. Other people have said, I've seen this. What we see in the affidavit from what Mitch, who is the leaker, who was arrested, he says that he took pictures of the crime scene images side by side on a table. Now, I've gone through every single person who has seen these images, gone through their live streams about it, and not one person has said, yes, these pictures looked like somebody took them that were laying out on a table and they were side by side. Not one person has said that. Not one person has said, well, I received discovery pages too. I've heard rumors of people saying, oh, Ruckus has discovery pages, or so-and-so has acts like he has this or that. And now I'm feeling like, okay, well, it just seems like there's different leaks going on. People have said that there's a mouse cursor on one of the pictures. So if Mitch is taking pictures of something side by side on a table, how is there a mouse cursor some point in one of these images? And other people have said that, well, the image is a picture of a computer screen. So then how is that computer screen laid out on a table side by side? Like obviously we've gone back and we've looked at Chris Todd's statements on Court TV last December. So almost a year ago, he was on there right when the gag order was initiated. And he said something along the lines of he has more information about the murders that other people don't have, like not in those words, don't take them verbatim, but he insinuated that he has seen crime scene images, not just the ones that he told us that he has of the clothing in the river. It's a separate leak of images that Chris Todd has talked about. So it's just very interesting that this latest leak that Mitch signs this affidavit for, that Mitch gets arrested for, that he risks his whole friendship with Baldwin over and his position working on the defense team, all that is just thrown out the window. And I'm still wondering why. Like, does anyone have any idea why Mitch did that? A lot of people do things for money. I mean, that's just the fact of things, right? But who would be somebody that would have paid Mitch to do this? Again, I don't want to shoot out names, but we know that he was on some podcast who has been in charge of all these other leaks. And, I'm not saying that they paid him, but I'm wondering, they get together in March and then by October he's leaking images and documents from the discovery. That's a huge, huge issue. Discovery pages being leaked out. And hello, Angie Erickson and everyone who has joined. Let me just scroll up. So earlier before this stream started, somebody named Julie became a member. So I wanted to welcome Julie. I don't know if she's listening. And thank you, Donna, for becoming a member. So happy to have you. And Seth, thank you for the super sticker. And I love the new picture. Great smile. So, it just kind of goes back to the whole question we've been wondering too, is why were certain leaks seen as gross and negligent, and then this one set them over the edge, or other ones weren't seen as gross negligence. Now, the discovery pages being leaked, why wasn't that mentioned? Everything that was mentioned in the transcripts and on Mitch's affidavit that he signed admitting to everything that he had done. Again, he never stated the date he did it, and he never stated why he did it. Where does these discovery pages and documents, that are going around on Facebook, people are saying, those who receive the documents, destroy them or turn them over to IS. Somebody getting information like that is very troublesome. Of course, the crime scene images of younger girls, especially one being nude, that's problematic. But straight up discovery pages before a trial, and the fact that the judge didn't even mention any of this, like, why are we just kind of piecing this together ourselves? And what I mean by that is, of course, I am referencing that Facebook post or whatever, that comment that person pretty much admits to saying, like, yeah, some of us received the documents and pictures, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just confused. Like, why hasn't anyone really talked about it? Now, what confuses me even more is this latest Court TV episode. And of course, the podcast is on there. And they come out explaining the leak a little bit. And then she says that they received pages of the discovery. Now, hello, these people have been on Court TV how many times since the leak? They were on News Nation. They've done their own podcasts. Can you guys please tell me if I'm wrong? But I've never once before this episode, which aired a couple days ago, heard them say anything about they also received discovery pages. Has anyone heard that? I'm going to play this and you guys just let me know in comments. I already see Marar saying yes. So you're saying that you've never heard them say until this week, basically, that they've gotten discovery pages too. All I've heard them talk about is the crime scene images. So am I just missing something? But then all of a sudden this week they talk about, and we received discovery page. It's like they're just like milking this stuff. Like, let me just drop that we've seen these images, and they topped it off with, but the ones that we saw were the most graphic. Okay. So how do you know what other people have seen in this whole leakage? You know what I mean? It's just too much in the know of this leak situation, in my opinion, the certain comments that they make. And then now all of a sudden they're back on Court TV, in the spotlight, and they're talking about, Vinny doesn't even say anything about the discovery pages. He skims right over it. And I'm like listening. Okay, so nope, never heard them speak about anything but leaked pics. Yeah, exactly. Well, now, the months are going by and they got to come up with another episode. And now they're going to talk about, well, we also have discovery pages. What? You think you would have said that, like when we spoke about this leak, how many times? And hello, Roxanne, good to see you. So glad all my friends are here. So let me just play this and you guys can hear it come right out of her mouth.
Certainly. So our role in this sort of effectively started October 5th. We received some crime scene images along with other leak discovery.
She quickly slides it in there. We received crime scene images along with other leak discovery. Where is that coming from? You've already been on Court TV. We've already discussed this on News Nation with Ashley Banfield. It's just, I can't even believe it. So now they get more airtime in another month because, guys, this stuff has been going on since, early October, this leak information and them going around on mainstream media and tooting their horn about what they have, as always. And now, all of a sudden they're saying, well, we have leaked discovery pages. Why wouldn't Mitch in his, unless I'm wrong, you guys please comment down below or let me know, in his signed affidavit about the leak and his part in it, and admitting to it, he never said anything about pictures of documents. Did he? Again, I could be wrong. Oh, Alex, thank you for being a member for 7 months. I know you've been watching for years, and likewise, and you in your coverage on Letitia still has me sucked into that Letitia hole, and it's a dark one, but you do such a good job with that case. But guys, I don't know. This is just so weird. And hello, Mark. Good to see you. Oh, hello, Bay. I hope you guys have a great holiday. So, let me just carry on because there's going to be more of me reacting to this little thing. So, again, the whole episode is about Mitch being arrested. New arrest in Delphi murders crime scene photo leak. Notice how even the title doesn't even say crime scene photo leak and discovery leak. And here, he mentions it or she mentions it, sorry. And Vinny just skims right over it. Like if I was Vinny, I would have been like, whoa, 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 whoa. Leaked discovery pages? Hold up. What? So it's just very weird to me that all of a sudden, all this stuff's come out for months now. We're in December. And now all of a sudden they want to bring to the mainstream media that, well, they have leaked discovery too. And again, people have kind of been hinting that they have it. Other YouTubers that were part of this, well, I guess not all of them were part of the email leak. But anyways, there's other people who've kind of hinted that, well, we've seen this. To me, it all comes back down to Mark. Mark is linked to everybody doing this. And Shane says, remember Doug Carter personally thanked Murder Sheet. They are in with law enforcement big time. They are the mouthpiece for the prosecution to get around this gag order. I'm convinced, again, I'm not saying that they paid Mitch to do what he did because I don't want to, accuse them of doing, obviously that would be very bad. And I don't know them. I don't know what they're capable of. I know people in Facebook groups have said, well, she comes from money, so blah, blah, blah. I don't know that. I don't know what she would spend her money on. I don't know if that would be worth it to them. But I do know that they've built a lot of their online career on this case. And if it went to trial in January, what were they going to do in February for whatever? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not saying certain things. I'm just saying these are my thoughts. And I don't understand why all of a sudden now we're hearing that they have leaked pages from the discovery. And that's super problematic. And why wasn't it ever mentioned? It's like they're dragging out this clout from it. You know what I mean? And that's just my thoughts. You guys don't have to feel that way. And if you disagree, please, let me know. And thank you, Alex, for gifting 5 memberships. Merry Christmas, everyone. And welcome to those memberships, or happy holidays, whichever you prefer.
Fifth, we received some crime scene images along with other leaked discovery. Pretty quickly, our source wanted to sort of turn around and cooperate with law enforcement. We alerted law enforcement and the defense. We sort of discussed all this. And so what ended up happening was a man named
It's funny how she goes, we've already discussed all this. Yeah, but we've never discussed that you got discovery pages. So can you go back to that? Scotty Skulls, good to see you. I don't like MS. They exploit info for notoriety, in my opinion. And you know what? I cannot disagree with you. This is why I agree with you. So this is just an example of something that they've put out. They did the same thing with Ron Logan. And now I know it's a normal thing to do, especially with news agencies and stuff. But for me and for being in true crime, as long as I have, watermarks always bother me because this is true crime, like other subjects, I guess, like maybe, but to me, it's like you're making it about you. You're making it about you did this, you found this, you discovered this, and it's supposed to be about the victims. So I do agree with you. That was just something I kind of thought about for a while, seeing their watermark. Again, like, I know a lot of people do that, so you guys are more than welcome to disagree. I just feel like that looks very, like, self-righteous.
Mitch Westerman came forward to Andy Baldwin and ended up telling him, I did this. Now, who's with Mitch Westerman? He is actually a close friend of Andy Baldwin. He used to work with him at the law firm there. And apparently Baldwin was using him as some sort of consultant on the case, not officially, but basically viewed him as a really talented strategist and was kind of running things by him on Delphi. He was passing that along to others. And this ultimately ended up with the leaking of crime scene photographs and other discovery and also trial strategy, things like that. And so it's been, now what has happened is Mitch Westerman, you can see his mugshot here, has been arrested and charged with criminal conversion. So they can't charge him with theft because he didn't really take anything, but he's basically accused of improperly using these images, and it's a whole mess.
21 miles away from Delphi. Delphi, Indiana is where
See, she's just said right there that, like, he's been arrested for these images. So then who leaked the discovery pages? And why are we just skimming over that like it's no big deal? Like, I'm saying, why isn't mainstream media saying, like, discovery pages? Like, that could be pages of, evidence stuff from the lab. That could be police notes. That could, stuff that's just very vital to Richard Allen's fair trial. Again, I'm not one of those people who think he's completely innocent. I do think that the way he's being treated in prison is a little questionable, like being tased twice, being in a prison for one, in solitary confinement and not in a jail, even though there's another jail who said, we'll take him. There's a lot of things that are just wrong in the case, like constitutionally, but I'm not saying that he's innocent, if that makes sense. I just feel like to get where we need to be in the right way, like everything needs to be fair for the defendant. And of course, everything needs to be investigated thoroughly for the victims. So this Odinism theory, as much as I'm not really buying it, like my gut doesn't buy it either. Like, I don't know how you guys feel. And I'll explain in a little bit why I'm not really settled on this Odin thing, but I just, it's a messy case. It really is a messy case on so many levels, from the court to the investigation itself, losing the tip. Hold on, let me just fast forward a little bit.
B lives, okay? You got
So I want to go through this because, again, the investigation allegedly is still going on, they claim, even though they're not coming out. And hello, Kathy, and thank you. I'm glad it's making sense to somebody. Mar buys the Odinism theory, and that's totally fair. The only thing that makes me really hang on to it maybe is the fact that the prison guards had Odinism patches. That's the only thing where I'm like, well then, but again, I'm not saying what I think truly is it was made to look like Odinism. So I'll explain why I think that the perpetrator, I don't know if it was Richard Allen. I don't know if he acted alone. In fact, I'm 100% almost on the page that he didn't act alone. But I'm thinking that they mimicked or mocked an Odinism type scene. That's where I'm coming from. So it does appear like Odinism and the stuff is connected, but I'm feeling like it's just staged to look that way.
who commits an opportunistic type of murder, carrying a gun, gets the girls to go to a certain place, and then murders them. Defense, completely different theory, involving a ritualistic killing by a group of men somehow associated through the ancient Nordic religion of Odinism. That's the allegation. So the allegations by the defense in their papers are very thick and very specific. So I'm going to run through some of them here. to try to give you a flavor for what they are alleging, okay? So we begin with person A. We're not naming any of the people. We're just giving them letters. So person A lives here in Logansport, Indiana, which is 21 miles away from Delphi.
So he's going through some of the people in the memorandum that were kind of, that the defense was like, listen, this person here is suspicious. This person here is suspicious. Why are you only honing in on Richard Allen? So that's kind of where this part of this segment is going towards. And I kind of want to refresh it because I think that it's important to kind of keep things open, and we can't just get tunnel vision, because I really think that that has happened in this case by law enforcement numerous times. I think they got tunnel vision with Brown Logan. I think they got tunnel vision on maybe even Keegan Klein. I don't know. Other people too. I know there was multiple search warrants on multiple people that was going on within the first few days, which brings us to the other subject I kind of want to talk about, is me feeling like this was a target against Libby from somebody online. And it goes beyond Keegan Klein, in my opinion. I think, whereas before I was like, well, what are the odds that somebody using Anthony Schott's account wanted to meet up with her and then they get murdered? I've always thought like, well, it has to be connected to Anthony Schatz and Keegan Klein. But now, after seeing and looking back at her social media and how open it was, I'm starting to feel like, you know what? Like, it really is possible that she was talking to maybe multiple people on there and multiple people were preying on her. You guys let me know what you think while I play this.
Delphi, Indiana is where person B lives, okay? You got person A, person B. Person A, their son was dating one of the victims, Abby Williams. Person A would visit person B in Delphi to practice Asatru/Odinist rituals.
So this is about BH. So they're calling BH person A. And this is that person that we've brought up before, where we've compared his image with Bridge Guy, and people have been like, oh wow, I mean, that looks like Bridge Guy. Or people have been like, okay, well, clearly this person who they're calling person A is connected to Abby because the son was dating Abby. And that's very unsettling, obviously. And it's like, okay, well, that seems to be a direct link. Whereas Richard Allen and Keegan Klein, we haven't seen that like direct link besides Keegan Klein using Anthony Schatz, who actually other people had access to that account, apparently. Now I'm like at the point where, you know, because we've looked at BH's info, aka person A, on Facebook. Everything is wide open, everything is public, whereas a lot of people have, including myself, have their Facebook kind of like shut down to public. And yeah, BH's Facebook posts, you go through them and you're like, why does he have all these images of him carving runes? Why does he have these stick figures looking a certain way in the woods? What's going on with these in Odin we trust type posts that he's put up, and I'm a heathen? And you know, we've gone through it in other live streams, and again, he had his Facebook completely open, so you could go there and you could see like, why does his tattoo look like the same stick formations that was laid out on the girls? You know, all these things have kind of been going through our minds when it comes to person A here. And now that I'm like thinking about this being something very much like an online target, I'm feeling like, especially knowing how small this town is, and think about it, person A was dating Abby, or son was dating Abby. So was there some sort of digital trail? You know what it's like when you guys go on a Facebook page and you click on this person, and then you read something, you're like, oh, interesting. And then it talks about another person. So was there something that had the perpetrator snooping around these girls online and seen BH, aka person A, because it's all connected, like through the web and through people, you know, and all that? And is there a chance that not only was this perpetrator watching the girls and preying on the girls online, but could they also have picked up these certain images and stuff like that from this person who is an Odinist apparently, or practices what's the word? That type of religion type, you know what I mean? Paganism. Is there something that's, kind of along the same lines of being online and kind of honing in on the girls, but also through this cycle of connections, realizes that Abby's prior boyfriend and this is the father's Facebook page. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just feeling like, was the perpetrator just sitting online, falling down these rabbit holes, and then used all these things to kind of inspire the crime when he was there? Or like Marar says, or could BH be involved? I mean, that, until it's all laid out for us to see fully, can always be a possibility. And clearly in the memorandum, that's what the defense was pretty much laying out. They're saying, look at this person. Like it says right on the screen, son was dating Abby, would visit person B in Delphi to practice Odinist rituals, associated with Van Lander gang and all this stuff that they're going to go through. It's questionable. It causes reasonable doubt. What would 12 jurors think? Would they think BH was involved, or would they think that because BH's Facebook is public and because there's a connection with his family to Abby, did somebody stumble on his public stuff and was like, that's interesting, and kept it kind of in the back of their mind, Now let me just play this a little bit, because I think we should go through person A, etc., and kind of just refresh on all that, because we can prove it is not true. Dustin, are you referring to BH, like his alibi and stuff like that, all checked out? Because that's what I've heard most people say when we're referring to person A here is, no, his alibi and all that, I mean, again, do I think it's BH? I don't. But would that cause reasonable doubt for a juror? That's what's really going to matter.
Is somehow, again, these are all allegations by the defense, associated with the Vinlander gang, which apparently white supremacist, I believe. Ex-wife of says person A and person B stopped being friends after a fight during a ritual in the woods. Images on Facebook page resembled the crime scene. Again, according to the defense, multiple tips about person A were called in after these murders. Let's get back to person B now. Again, from Delphi, Indiana. Person B's home, only 3.1 miles from the closest entry point to the murder scene, holds the as a true Odinist religious ceremonies at his home. A 2016 video purportedly shows person B using his finger to mark or paint a tree, which is an allegation of what was found at the scene, some blood or something on a tree. Let's take a look now at three more people. Rushville, Indiana. Person C, D, and E all live there, but that's 271 miles from Delphi, okay? It's not around the corner. Person C is a Vinlander and an Odinite, is friends with person A, person B, and person D. Recruits members for the Vinlander gang. Drove up to Delphi around Valentine's Day in 2017 to see his, quote, Vinlander buddies. When he drove back from Delphi, he had blood along the side of his car. That's person C. Person D, also Rushville, Indiana, linked to person A through Facebook and recreates the Facebook posts that are made by person A. Person A posts something, then all of a sudden person D does the same thing. Told his sisters he was involved in the murders and said he was part of a gang. Said to his sister that he made horns out of sticks and placed them on Abby's head. Asked the police if he could explain why his spit was on the girls, would he still be in trouble?
Now, if I was a juror, this person to me would be the most that I'm like, what's going on? Again, this is Elvis. This is, and hello, Aries. Good to see you. This is a person who, confessed to the crime, because a lot of people like to say, oh, Richard Allen confessed to his mother and wife. He must be guilty. He confessed. This person also confessed to his family. So, and told the cops that his spit would be found, on the girls. So it's very, very cloudy. And these are just things that we've kind of been weeding out these past few months, because this is about the memorandum. that this dump on us took place before the leaks of the photos did. And now all of a sudden this leak of crime scene photos is now becoming a leak of, well, yeah, it was discovery pages too. And hello, Marshall Dove. Good to see you. Marshall, did you know that there was pages of the discovery that was also leaked like the same time as this crime scene one? Because we were discussing earlier how Murder Sheet and other people have no one's really been talking about the pages of discovery. And now all of a sudden Murder Sheet mentions it on Court TV a couple days ago.
The investigator, though, describes him as having the mental capacity of a 7 or 8-year-old. He lied to police when he told them he did not know person C. He told police he was home in Rushville on the day of the murders. Now let's move to person E. Told police he was with person D in Muncie, Indiana. Person D, who said he was in Rushville, was in Muncie, Indiana, visiting a friend in the hospital on the day of the murders. Told police person D was communicating inappropriately with underage girls on the internet. According to person C, person E was interested in joining the Vinlander gang. And don't forget about the one other big revelation about the context of Odinism in this case is that the prison guards who were watching Richard Allen are alleged to be Odinists. And then they admitted not necessarily being Odinites, but I think they said Nordic heathenry, something along those lines. So we've got to get to the bottom of all these Odinist Nordic tentacles in the case. Still with me, Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast, Bob Mott, a great attorney, joining us from Little Rock, Arkansas tonight. She's also been, of course, on the Murder Sheet podcast. President and CEO of the Troth, the largest international organization for heathenry. That's Lauren Crow. Great to see you tonight. And in Salt Lake City.
Disguises itself as a religion and impunity. So Odinism is, think of it as Odinism, if you think about it, it's the Westboro Baptist Church of Germanic and Norse paganism, which all of the things we're talking about right now fall under kind of this umbrella of Germanic and Norse paganism. Germanic in the sense of Germanic languages. So you think of Anglo-Saxon, Frankish, Aramaic, all of these tribes that existed pre-Christianity in Northern Europe. So then you have Asatru. Asatru and Odinism are not the same thing. Asatru in the United States, I'm speaking specifically in the United States because it is different in Europe, is a racist but not white supremacist gang racist form of paganism. So they believe that to be a Norse pagan, that should be allowed to people with Norse descent, so white people essentially. You have to be white enough. And then you have heathenry. So heathenry is a blanket term. I practice what's called inclusive heathenry, and we believe anyone can be heathen. As we say, we're not so arrogant to think we know who the gods are going to call, right? We're not going to try to tell our gods what to do. And so the problem that I'm seeing in here is, first of all, Odinite is not a thing. I don't know where they come up with this. It's a mineral. It's found in sedimentary areas. I have a geology background, so the first time I read that, I was very confused as to why they were talking about rocks. But also, I think one important thing to remember is that Odinism is present anywhere that there's racism because it's not a religion. It's a gang that is in prisons using the guise of religion to be able to gather and do gang activity.
Gotcha. I mean, and they sort of say that, but not exactly the way you're saying. So Mike King, from your background, knowing what we know, limited obviously, but about the crime scene, about what happened here, the allegations of the defense, does this strike you as a ritualistic type of murder? What happened to Abby and Libby? And do you see it being in sync with these allegations of these rocks/Odinites who were practicing, I guess, outside of prison and meeting and doing things allegedly together?
Well, I really like that quick lesson that we just had, and I appreciate that because it helped me kind of put into perspective a couple of my thoughts, Vinny. And first and foremost, we have to recognize that groups like white supremacist groups for decades have used symbology to somehow get across messaging. We also know that criminals can go in and create a crime scene. They go.
Okay, sorry, Mike King. I have to pause you for a second. My thing. Okay, I understand now more about the origins and the background. Hello, Legendary, of Odinism. I appreciate her going on there and explaining that. My thing is doesn't it kind of go against this white supremacist ideology to kill 2 white females, that's where I kind of get I'm like hung up on this. Like, yes, of course these people exist. Yes, of course they're foul. But the crime itself, you know what I mean? Like, where exactly is, like, why were they saying, like, we have to do it to these girls? Like, we have to do this ritual. To me, the scene, especially from True Crimes Design's image of the crime scene of the girls, and how a lot of people who have seen the images have said that's the most accurate that's out there. Um, it looks very much like an essay, like child essay. It looks like something that maybe was a snuff film. That's the vibe I get from everything we know about the scene. Um, Especially, Abby's pants were undone, and obviously Libby's laying there nude. So where this whole ritual comes in, and it's all this is tied to Odinism, like I'm falling short on connecting why they would sacrifice 2 white females. I'm just a little confused there.
Go from a very organized state to this very disorganized state where we see all kinds of bizarre things happening, but then go through a process of staging where they spend some time maybe sharing things that they saw. We saw it with Richard Ramirez. Remember that pentagram that he kept writing on the wall? He told me.
Okay, I appreciate you, Dustin, but there's numerous people who have seen these images that have said Abby's had Libby's clothes on, yes, but Abby's jeans were not done. They were undone. So, and not even on her fully. They were on crooked. So please, like, I appreciate your comments and stuff, but stop saying things are not true. From everything we have seen Libby was nude. Abby was wearing some of Libby's clothes. Abby's pants weren't on correctly, not on straight, and they weren't not buttoned. So again, I appreciate your comments, but with the research that we've gathered and people who have seen these images, what you're saying is going against what people who have seen them are saying. So Marar said motivation would be SA, and other stuff could be their version of Odinism or heathenry. But like, why kill them, I guess? You know what I mean? Because most people who are white supremacists like want white females to populate more white females than males. So I'm just confused, like, why they had to sacrifice them. And yeah, for real, Katie, those poor sweet girls.
Personally, he was never a Satanist at first, but it became good business. So we got to keep in mind, is this an artifact of what was really going on?
That's true.
If this was truly a group of people who were going through ritual crime, I think we'd see evidence in other locations to support it, not just relationships or a video that came out that somebody, including Richard Allen, could have seen and recreated on the fly in the middle of a crime scene. We have to look at this thing in totality and not get sucked into these individual pieces of really amazing pieces of evidence and information, because we can go down rabbit holes that completely cause us to forget all the facts and just twist everything we're seeing to fit whatever goofy theory we're coming up with. And I guess this is what really is putting pressure on the prosecution to make sure they can come in.
Absolutely. Reasonable
say,
doubt comes in many different forms. You throw stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing, Scotty. Law enforcement have never said yes or no. In fact, when I think Doug Carter was asked directly, how come we don't know if there was an essay on these girls? Doug Carter has said, and they asked like the manner of death. That's how old this interview was. They said, because those are the details only the killer would know, and we're not ready to come out with all that information. People have said, well, that means there was no essay. And for a while I was like, yeah, guess not. They were just killed, I guess. But with the new discovery of Libby was nude, obviously we knew the clothing in the river when that was leaked, that was questionable. And the fact that there's a sock and pair of underwear that are missing is questionable. But the fact also of, Abby's jeans not being fully on her and buttoned and zipped, that to me is another indication that like, well, I guess they were kind of keeping this stuff under wraps, but from me looking at it from the outside, it seems like I'm pretty certain that there was an essay. I hope there wasn't. And obviously, I'm not hoping that I'm right in this situation, but that's just my vibe from what we found out. And what, like I said, True Crime Design shared some images. People who seen the real images said that's pretty much it. It looks very unsettling. And all right, Chase, have a good night. I appreciate you stopping in. I don't know, but you're right. They never have said 100% one way or the other. I'm just kind of concluding in my own opinion.
Stuff in
You're
there.
not a kid.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Lauren, and if you can answer quickly, that'd be appreciated. We're almost out of time. How prevalent is heathenry / this Norse paganism? Because, I mean, all these names are popping up, including, I think it was 2 or 3 of the prison guards that were there. So should I be shocked that there's that many in a particular area?
No, I am president of the largest organization. We have 2,500 members around the world. The church in Iceland, for instance, has over 1,000 members. I think more than that now. It's actually, paganism as a whole is one of the fastest growing religions in the world. And it especially draws people who are very into military, first responders. Those people tend to be very drawn into it because of the warrior aspects. The "in Odin we trust" thing, very common among, those patches are very common among military, first responders, police, like, who are heathen. It is a way for them to say, you know, I'm putting my life in, to put it in Christian terms, I'm trusting God and putting my life in his hand as I go out and do my job today, is what those patches mean. It's the same as saying, you know, Jesus bless me today.
Anya and Kevin, I want to give you the final word. We only have like 15 seconds on Odinism, the overall. Put a button on this for us.
It'll be very interesting to see what the next set of public defenders does with this, if they continue the Odinist angle or if they drop it.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, thank you so much. Murder Sheet Podcast. Valmont's going to stay around. Lauren Crow, appreciate your time. Mike King, always great to see you. When we come back, we'll revisit that crime scene one more time.
So they're about to have Chris Todd on, and he's the one last year who basically was acting like he's seen these crime scene images. And Marshall Duff says boom and the bookcases go down. Oh my gosh. But anyways, Chris Todd has indicated that he's seen these images, and a lot of us, including Criminality, we've theorized, like, are these images not from Mitchell's leak, but are they images from Chris Todd's leak? Because again, it's not on tables, pictured side by side, etc. Marsha, I wanted to read your other comment too. This to me is staging a scene to appear so detailed as Nordic paganism, etc. You would be shocked, but no one but members of Odinism could know how to stage this way, etc. Red herring to direct. See, we were kind of discussing, like, Brad H., the guy that his son allegedly, I'll say allegedly because Dustin is saying this isn't true. Allegedly, his son, according to memorandum and Brad's Facebook page, dated Abby, and BH, we'll call him, his whole Facebook page shows, you know, pictures of runes and heathenry stuff and Nordic paganism stuff. And so we were just kind of theorizing, like, not only were these girls kind of preyed on online, but did they also, this perpetrator also see BH's Facebook and get inspired by the stuff that he shares? Like, again, you can go on Facebook and you can look up Brad and then his last name. And as last I knew, everything was still public. You can see pictures of sticks. And again, the defense has painted it as like, what about this guy? But really, you know, I'm sure law enforcement hopefully like checked his alibi and all that. But either way, this kind of goes back to this whole online social media world where I believe, and I'll show after this segment is done, you know, just to refresh on what Libby's social media looked like. It's troubling. Like, if you're a young girl and there's predators who are looking at your page, it's just, again, I'm not victim shaming her, but I'm just saying, like, it's just a reminder, I guess, how dangerous the internet can be.
The murder of these two young girls was horrific. The crime scene was horrific. I've read the descriptions. We know some pictures have been leaked online, but none of this stuff has been made completely publicly disseminated, right? So a lot of people don't know exactly, but some people, I think, have a better idea. Still with me tonight, Bob Mata, great defense attorney and host of his podcast, Defense Diaries, and joining us in Orange County, California, the author of Forest for the Trees, a book about the Delphi murders, investigative producer Chris Todd. All right, Chris, start with you. I haven't been there. I didn't go to the scene. I haven't seen the pictures of the scene. They've been leaked online. I've not seen them. What can you tell us about the scene, and what does the scene tell you about what happened to these two young girls?
And isn't it funny that as soon as Vinny says, like, I've not seen these images, I don't want to see them, and then, Chris is just nodding his head. He not once comes out saying, like, oh, I've never seen them either. And again, some people might just act like they have information that they don't have. But for me, I really think that some of these images actually, you could link it directly back to this guy. And that's just my opinion. I'm able to state my opinion. It's not slander, whatever. He's come out on Court TV a year ago, not this segment, but he's pretty much said that he has the pictures. He didn't specify, but I don't know. It's questionable. And here he doesn't deny, oh, Vinny, I haven't seen them. Or, and Vinny says, what can you tell us about the scene? As if Vinny knows that Chris has seen them.
Well, obviously right now there's a lot of legal issues with talking about the crime scene, photos and the crime scene itself. So I have to be very careful right now.
Absolutely. I want you to be 1,000% careful.
We've had collateral damage. Someone lost their life over this. And that person's work will not be in vain. I will say that. And from what...
Does anyone else find that comment interesting too, Marar? What do you think? He's referring to the veteran, the Air Force veteran who unalived himself after this leak became public. The one that his wife said, he told me everything would be okay as long as he told the truth. And the next thing you know, there's something else going on that we just don't know why he decided to go out the way he did. Could have been other things, of course. But again, just a big mystery. But Chris Todd says his work won't go in vain. Like, what does that mean? Like, if Richard Allen is the right guy and we're on the right path to justice for these girls, what does he mean by Robert's work won't go in vain? Anybody?
I've been on this case for years, and just in general, what I'm going to say is I do not believe Abby and Libby were killed where they were found. I believe they were killed in an enclosed area on Ron Logan's property.
See, I agree with, and you guys let me know what you think. I don't think that they were killed there at that spot. FBI has even come out saying that they were moved and staged. I think that maybe once Ron Logan knew that they were done searching back there, I don't know if he's directly involved, but could he have given an okay for somebody put them there? Or did he make it known that they'd already looked at his area? I don't know. I really don't know. Scotty says the shed. And we went through that, I think, on Criminality's live stream when I was on with her. And she pulled up images of a shrine, like flowers and candles, very early on after the murders, of this barn shed. Some people call it a barn, others call it a shed. And we want to know more information about that. Like, where is this, where it took place? Maybe his contribution to removing the defense attorneys who were standing in the way of conviction. Oh, about Robert? Yeah, maybe his contribution to removing the defense attorneys who were standing in the way of conviction. But Chris Todd thinks that Ron Logan is involved. So would Chris Todd be behind that also? Ron had dogs. It's strange to me that they didn't find the bodies a few hundred yards away. Good point, Shane. I never even knew that. For one, I always thought it was strange that in that one media interview, Ron says, I came home with my tropical fish And my neighbor said that they wanted to go back there and search for these girls. And that was the first time I'd heard about it. And so I'm in there and he says something about, not word for word, but I'm messing around with my fish all night. And so it always stuck out to me that he never thought, let me help you guys look. What? There's missing girls? Well, I know my property. I'll walk around the perimeter with you, or I'll show you a spot maybe. You know what I mean? So it's strange. I didn't realize this guy is a Ron Logan believer. Yeah, he's like very much, I guess, wrote a whole book pretty much leaning towards it. Again, I'm not saying Ron Logan is a murderer. I'm not saying he's bridge guy. I'm just saying there's something weird about Ron Logan. But this guy, full-fledged, I believe, I don't want to misquote him, but I think his theory is Ron Logan's bridge guy. But either way, it's just interesting how he said that Robert's work won't go in vain.
And I believe they were placed there late at night or early in the morning. And I've talked about the.
Now, here's something that I kind of wanted to discuss too when we were discussing the crime scene, and we'll listen to Joseph Scott Morgan kind of talk about it as well. And he's a death investigator with good knowledge. He, in this segment, hasn't seen the crime scene images. I don't know if he has now, but either way, his opinion will come from somebody who hasn't seen them. But still, he's got, valid credentials. But what's his name? Chris Todd's just said he believes that they were placed there at night or early morning. Again, I think that those are possibilities. What would really determine that, which any death investigator or coroner, forensic expert could say, is the way that the body, like when your blood falls, your heart stops pumping, and the way that your blood falls in your body. What's that again, guys? You guys know the medical term for it. But that pretty much shows you, or an investigator, like what position they were in when they died. And you can see it looks like bruising from the outside. Lividity, or is it, some people pronounce it levity or something? Yes, thank you, Rockaways. Yeah, lividity. So that we could see, like, if we had the information for the autopsy and all that, which we don't. But that would tell them right away, did they die in this position and they've been laying there, or were they moved, because it would still show that it would fill like the body with blood with the way that they were laying. Bus driver with a large peen, right? Sorry, just reading a name in chat for those watching on replay.
I was one of the first people to expose the manner of death, and they tried to silence me many times on this, so I have to be a little reserved today, but I'm very appreciative to be here with you.
Bob Mata, let me ask you, to me, this case really comes down to the scene, right? Because what we've heard from the original defense team, a lot of it's based on the scene and the other things that were uncovered during the course of the investigation. But this was a case with many different potential suspects involved. Richard Allen was never one of them. Never one of them. I mean, should have been, based upon him admitting that he was there years ago, and should have been more thoroughly investigated years ago. But prosecution has their theory now on that he's the one that's responsible.
And I love how everyone just skims over that they lost the tip to Richard Allen. Scottish Queen says, I don't understand how they didn't find him that night. If they were there, they searched to right practically beside them. The official search was called off at 12 midnight till 9 a.m. because of fog. And that's just absurd. Like, this was the other thing that I was kind of thinking out loud, and those who followed closely, let me know. The dogs, I know they use dogs. Did they use them on the first day? Because not only, Shane brought up that Ron Logan had dogs, but the search dogs that were supposed to be looking for them, how did they not find them too? You know what I mean? If they were out there all night. But yet, law enforcement has made statements saying that everything was done and over with by 3:30. So the girls get there around 1:30, and all of a sudden by 3:30 everything's done and over with, and they were laying out there. That to me is hard to believe. So again, as much as I don't always agree with everything that this Chris Todd guy says, like, I do think that it is possible that they weren't there when they were searching Ron Logan's property and all that. They were not outside all night. Irwin says. See, and that's the thing is some people really have a strong belief, like Ruckus, that there's no way that they were dragged out there later, because he had gone out there and kind of walked the terrain, etc. That night I heard dogs and four-wheelers. Thank you, Johnny. They canceled the dogs when the girls were found. Okay. I don't know. Tobe called the dogs off day one. The dogs weren't used because they came from another state, so the dogs didn't arrive until hours after they were an hour after they were found on the 14th. Yeah, that's what I had been hearing too, that they weren't out there. I think the relationship was a distance, teenage relationships, seemingly they barely met up. Yeah, it's just got a lot of questions with all this stuff. Hello, Art of Deduction. Good to see you. It would be risky to bring them back there, in my opinion. Like during the day, you mean? And even with a gun. Like, yes, you can kidnap them. Like that, I believe. You're faced with a gun in your face and you're told to go down the hill. That's the other thing too, is I noticed again in the PCA when they have it in quotes, guys down the hill. Before I had thought maybe guys was kind of spliced from a different part in the audio and it possibly could be another person. But now that I'm reading the PCA and I see it all as one sentence, they even had a comma after guys, not a period. I'm realizing that like, nope, that was the full sentence by one person. But is that voice bridge guy? That's where I'm like, I don't know. And yes, thank you all for being here and hit like. Okay, Pointer Lover, did you hear? I think I said it earlier. I don't know if you were listening, but I thanked you. Like, thank you so much. And I said Merry Christmas, and I really appreciate that greatly. Thank you. Seriously, though. I appreciate all you guys being here. So not guys. No, he does say, like in the PCA, it says, quote, guys, comma, down the hill. And then the quote ends. So clearly all one sentence. Guys isn't spliced from a different part of the 43 seconds. My other thing is too, is like, I don't know if I've always thought that bridge guy had a certain gait and that was the way he walked, maybe with like a limp. Now I'm thinking and seeing other people walk the bridge. And sometimes you kind of have to step cautiously because of the way that the railroad's fallen apart. And I'm not convinced that that's an accurate way to like hone in on somebody's gait because the ground is unlevel and unsturdy. And other people who have filmed there have kind of done the same type of walk because it's kind of hard where to step and all that. No worries, Pointer Lover. I just want to make sure that you know that I appreciate you. But these dogs that was out there that night were friends and family dogs, not real trained cadaver dogs or human scent tracking dogs. Wow. That's unfortunate. And that kind of, see, that's something that happens in these cases that we cover. That's like, well, now I guess we would never know because you could say like, well, the dogs, no one ever found them, but those weren't even ones that were trained to find them. So is that why they didn't find them? Or were they just not out there yet? So that's why the dogs didn't hone in on them. It is. This case is so messed up. It really is. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is there's that whole Doug Carter speech where he says, look at the way he walks. And now I'm seeing other people film out there and I'm like, they're kind of walking that way too, because they have no other choice but to kind of walk that way or step that way. So unfortunately, that's like another part that I'm like, wait, what the heck? And if it's 43 seconds, you're telling me that's the closest shot you have of him? Why do we not have him approaching them? Like, why wasn't like an image of just like, I just feel like we need to see a little bit more of this 43 seconds, like the 3 seconds we've got. Like, do you think we'll see the whole video at trial?
From your perspective, the scene, how significant is it? What story do you believe it tells and will tell inside a courtroom?
I think it tells a huge story, Vinny. I think that, and again, and you stated in the opening, look, this information wasn't cooked up by the defense. It came straight from the discovery tendered to them by the state. And, you know, 3 cops who weren't a part of the unified command thought enough of the crimes.
Yeah, that's the thing, Tony. She says, I feel like this case was set up to never be solved, sadly. I feel the same way about John Bonet. I feel like there's got to be a way that they could have solved John Bonet right now, and they're not. I feel like, I don't know why, call it corruption or whatever, but why does it feel like this is headed towards a John Bonet? Like is Richard Allen even going to make it to trial?
Scene that they continued to investigate for months. We're now talking about, you know, Ferenczi and Todd Click and Murphy. Like, these guys went out and continued to interview, continued to investigate. So, you know, and as far as I know, the unified command was only made up of 6 cops. We're not talking about 50, 60 cops, excuse me, that were out there, you know, scouring the earth. You know, we're talking about 6 guys who apparently didn't agree with continuing this investigation any further into, you know, somebody who we're not going to name here, but stated that he was at the crime scene, that identified that he had put horns above one of the girls' heads, which only somebody who was there would know. And, you know, for whatever reason, law enforcement has abandoned it. In terms of trying to get to the truth here, which is, I think, what everybody's really main goal should be, and I know that it's the family's main goal. I think the families of the girls want whoever did this to pay for it, whether it be Richard Allen or whether it be somebody else, that it's the person that actually, or persons that actually did this are the ones who are going to pay. And I think that it requires more investigation. That's what I think, Vinny. I think that they stopped investigating that angle after three weeks. And I think that the thing speaks for itself.
Yeah. So Chris, how, and I know you've got your theory. You've laid it out. How many people potentially do you believe are involved here? And could Richard Allen be one of them?
And I do believe I know how police got onto Richard Allen. And when I reveal that, it's going to be a bombshell, as usual, that I like to bring sometimes. But I'm not going to comment at this second. But I do believe I know how they did. And it's going to tell a lot about the investigation. And it's going to say a lot about Richard Allen. I do believe there are multiple killers. And I believe one of those killers is not with us today.
Wow.
So again, call me crazy too, but I feel like it's possible that there's multiple killers or multiple people involved in this. But yeah, another bombshell, Katie says. Exactly. He's always dragging it out too. All right, hold on, guys. We still have some stuff to go through. Art of Deduction says, check community page. I am out. Ugh. Why don't you just tell me? You always do this stuff. But you said they found fibers and hairs. Okay, so is this the rumor about the dog or cat hair that was found? Or is this separate from that? So here's something I kind of want to go back to. And just to kind of hone in on why I believe a lot of this has to do with online predatory behavior. And just to kind of say, let's forget the Odinism stuff going on right now, and let's just kind of get back to something that's kind of from the victim, her social media. How could she have been perceived from a predator looking in? So again, this is an older documentary, a couple years old, before Richard Allen was arrested. But I want to kind of hone in on what she's talking about with a friend of Libby's, and when she shows Libby's social media. It's only a few minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Clearly, law enforcement is not going to release any information, but I can't get this thought out of my head. That crime was targeted. Somebody knew they were going to go to the bridge and when they were going to be there, but how? Social media is a possibility. I want to talk to somebody who may know more about who Libby was engaging with online. When was the last time you communicated with Libby?
February 13th, 2017.
The day before she died.
Yes. We were just on the phone all night.
Was she like...
So again, a lot of people have said, okay, well, she was texting Anthony Schatz all night. And now this guy's saying he was on the phone with her all night. just going back to who's involved, is it possible that there was somebody else that was kind of honing in on her social medias, like besides Keegan Kline using Anthony shots? I mean, this guy here has already said that he was talking to her. Was she talking to multiple people? These are things that kind of stand out to me as like, okay, I have some doubt when it comes to, is this just a coincidence, the whole Anthony shots thing? Because at first I was like, there's no coincidence that, Anthony shots is messaging her and then she dies. But now I'm starting to think like, okay, was there somebody else that she was messaging and she thought it was somebody else, and he says that he spoke with law enforcement. Are we going to find out down the line that Richard Allen was using a troll account and talking to Libby pretty much,
Looking for boyfriends on social media?
Libby was very active on social media platforms. Like, she talked to a lot of people.
Did they talk to strangers online?
They might have been. There was, I don't know if this has anything to do with the case, but there was a instance on Facebook where like I was busy playing video games and she was trying to get my help. Like she was like blowing up my phone and I was ignoring her for a little bit because I was playing video games, and she's like, I need your help. I need your help. There's this guy that won't leave me alone. So like I wasn't really responding that fast. And then the last thing she said was like, never mind, I got it.
She said, I got it.
Yeah. I kind of left it alone after she said she got it because I didn't really think anything deeper of it.
Do you know how old the guy was?
She believed that he was 19.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be any.
Yeah, it could be some older guy in a 19-year-old disguise.
How long before she died was that?
That was back in January, I want to say.
So only a couple of weeks
Early
out.
December, January.
I mean, don't you think that's relevant?
Yeah.
Did you bring that to the cops?
Yes, I did.
You did, and they did what about it?
They took pictures of it. I hadn't heard anything after that.
Okay.
So again, I'm not victim shaming. I'm just painting a picture of, is it Keegan Kline under Anthony shots and that's what's linking all this? Or is it just, is there somebody else? Is there going to be another rabbit hole? And hello, yeah, let's unpack that. Good to see you.
So, both of the girls were on social media. That's not unheard of. I mean, Libby seems to have been on several different platforms. She didn't have any kind of privacy settings or anything like that on it. I mean, you can see it here. Look at how she describes herself. And
Liberty German, single Pringle. I'm 12 years young.
she was on Musically at the time, right? This is her bio. Check it out. It says, patiently waiting for Peter Pan to come take me away to Neverland.
Again, she's just an innocent girl, but to a predator and looking at her social media and seeing that it was all public, sort of along the same lines as BH. All his stuff was public, all his stuff about runes and all that. So was this person, the perpetrator, looking at Libby's stuff and also looking at people that she knows, obviously Abby, and Abby allegedly was dating BH's son? Is this all kind of connected through social media, and the crime is kind of inspired by things that this perpetrator kind of saw, etc.? Yeah, I know this also is a good reminder to kind of monitor your kids more on social media. I paused it because not only is this platform saying patiently waiting for Peter Pan to come and take me away to Neverland, but also says follow my Instagram. And it's just obviously an innocent girl just using her social media, but Instagram is all about pictures, and that's what you share is pictures of you. And if it's public, this woman actually shows a comment somebody wrote on it.
This is actually one of the posts that she did with Abby. This is close to the time before the girls went missing, right? So I looked at the comments of the people that were corresponding with her, and see there's this one here that says hi, and then Libby says, who are you, right? Well, he never answers. So I looked into who it is,
And it turns out that he is 48 years old. He lives here in Delphi, and he's a felon. So I actually checked it out, and he doesn't fit any of the physical markers of Bridge Guy, because they're saying Bridge Guy is between, I think, 5'5" and 5'9" or something, and this guy's quite tall, but that's not the point. The point is,
and also interesting here, because I've seen flyers of Bridge Guy that say he's from the range of height of 5'6" to 5'10". Here she's reading something. I don't know if she read it verbatim, but it says she's quoting him as 5'5". And then we find out Richard Allen is 5'4", not too far away from what they're quoting here. See, this flyer here says 5'6". And they have the young guy and Bridge Guy next to each other. But don't we have interviews of somebody saying that Bridge Guy and that guy aren't the same guy? Correct me if I'm wrong. And look at the age range, 18 to 40. Well, that could be anybody and everybody. 180 to 200 pounds. See, for me, I really think that Richard Allen, he changed his appearance over time. I don't know if it's just what he does, but if you look at images from him from 2017 and when he got arrested, I mean, long goatee, but 2017, he had no beard, shaved head, kind of smaller. He gained a lot of weight. That goatee that he grows, to me, is like a clear change in appearance. So those are things that kind of stand out for me as like, okay, so is he guilty? He looks like he purposely tried to change the way he looks. Whether he's Bridge Guy or not, I don't know. Whether he's these sketches, I don't know. But say he is, and that's why he changed his appearance. I feel like that could be obviously circumstantial evidence, but to me, it stands out. It seems there are so many cases of this nature than 20 years ago, for example. Yeah. And it's not the same guy, Marar says. The sketch and the Bridge Guy, or Richard Allen and Bridge Guy? Who's not the same guy? I've seen multiple comments saying that. He did change his appearance. That's my view of it. That doesn't look good. Doesn't make him look innocent. I know that you're not supposed to base people's innocence off of looks, but yeah, the sketches aren't the same guy, right? And the sketch, I don't know if that's even Bridge Guy. Yeah, this is why I can't deep dive into this case too much. There are too many paths to go down and contradictory info. I mean, and that's what happens when cases get long. I mean, this has been going on since 2017. And Richard Allen looks different now, of course. Absolutely. Either it was him or to throw everyone off.
is that she was very exposed.
What about the families?
The other
And I agree with what she said. I mean, unfortunately, looking at the way that she interacted online, again, we're not shaming, we're just pointing out the facts, and hopefully we could try to prevent something like this happening in the future. But her stuff was very vulnerable on social media, her presence. And that woman right there tracked down a felon commenting on one of her pictures, instantly. So again, I just want to hear a death investigator, and we'll leave it with this for the day. Want to hear from Joseph Scott Morgan. They comment about the scene, just trying to bring it back to an understanding of this case in language that I can understand. And it's going to be people who could understand this scene, whether it's linked to Odinism or not, whether it's just made to look that way. I'm still unsure. I really think it's not really linked to Odinism as much as it was inspired by somebody who had seen things that were Odinistic like. I don't know if that's the word, sorry. But again, let's just bring it back to what an expert could maybe come to a conclusion of with the information that we've been given of the girls at the scene.
Joseph Scott Morgan. Let's start first with the bodies. Does that appear posed the way it's described? Does it appear that someone could be murdered or dragged and naturally end up that way? And what are your thoughts about the blood and lack of blood in parts of this scene?
Again, without having access to the
That's exactly it. Yeah, let's unpack that. It says in this case, the lines of facts, evidence, and putting it together is a puzzle with missing pieces. It really is. And it gets frustrating, like especially to follow it and talk about it. But there's so many things that go on in my head that I have to come to you guys and kind of decompress it. Yeah, crime scene and prison guards, what are the odds? Again, Georgia, that I had said earlier that that's something that has me holding on to, like, this is weird. Is the prison guards patches and how they were asked to remove them as soon as that memorandum came out too. So, you know, if there was nothing odd about it or wrong about it, why ask them to remove it? You know, and again, are these the guards that tased Richard Allen? That's something else I need to know, which I believe they were. But either way, it's hard. It's a hard one.
the imagery. It's very difficult for me to opine about this. You know, positionality is everything, whether it's some kind of ritualistic event, and even when, you know, when we work cases involving serialized perpetrators, they have a ritual in and of themselves. So you know, they have a rich fantasy life as well. If they're acting out, they can pose bodies. I worked a series of homicides where bodies were posed in kind of Leonardo da Vinci's classic anatomical man position. And you also have this issue that's really significant to me, that is undressing and redressing, which is something that's quite striking to me that came out. But yeah, that's the scene as far as I can understand it at this point. I don't know that this is necessarily randomized, but if this is the coverage that is on top of these bodies, it would seem to me that it was a very poor effort to obscure the bodies, because that's the goal with covering bodies, right? You want them out of sight. We don't know how robust any of the vegetation was. We don't know how fresh the vegetation was. And it's very troubling to me then that these items were not collected, specifically as it applies to tool marks. They were not collected in the beginning, because we're talking about saw marks, bolt cutters, perhaps. I don't know, you know, how were these limbs, if they are in fact limbs, how were they trimmed away? Because that's a big telltale there. You're leaving money on the ground there from an evidentiary standpoint. Why would you not collect it at that point in time? I don't understand that.
Lauren Vellucci, what questions do you have based upon what the defense has now filed in court? What questions does that raise for you as an investigator?
I agree with JSM. I mean, I think it's appalling that they didn't take the sticks as evidence. Judging from the height of the girl.
Now, guys, help me out. Did they or didn't they take the sticks? Because I've heard both.
These sticks had to be decent size. So were they skinny little sticks that they could have easily broken? It seems more logical that they were long, the size of them, because some of them were the length of the bodies of the.
I'm also hearing that they were not skinny sticks. So they didn't initially gather them. And then did they get them eventually?
Of the girls. So therefore, again, how would they have caught them? It's very troubling. That that piece of information that you guys just brought out blows my mind. And from an investigation standpoint, it's appalling.
So, Dawn, as we try to get to the truth of what happened here, people involved in a ritualistic killing, would it just be a one-off? Like, let's say there's a group of Odinists who are practicing and doing sacrifices or rituals like this. Would there be more bodies? Because this goes back all the way to 2017, and we have heard nothing about other victims in this area.
Well, you'd have to know what type of ritual. Again, if it's not somebody connected to one of these organized ideologies, it could be something they're just inventing in their mind. But it could also be, you don't know if it's an initiation, if it's sacrificial. There's a lot of different types of rituals that are done.
Well, let me lay this out. Let me lay this out, though, Dawn, because here's what the defense is saying. The defense is saying one of these girls has a mom who would date interracially. So that was the motivation behind all of this. This is part of their theory. And it's this group that is, practicing Odinism. And this is why they attacked these particular girls. I mean, that's part of what they're laying out there as potentially what happened here. Does it make it less plausible that there haven't been other attacks in the area? Like a group, would they just kind of go after one particular victim and one off and that's it? We don't see bodies all over the place?
No, that it's quite possible and plausible. I mean, there are groups like this that not only ritually murder, they ritually rape women. They're active. They could be doing it in other places. I guess what I'm trying to say is this does happen, as bizarre as it sounds. There are ritual murders, and a lot of these racist Odinists are growing. They are recruiting, and they're part of this like warrior tribal.
So back to why I feel like Libby was targeted. So was it Libby's mother who dated interracially, and that's why they think, they targeted her? Because again, that's also something that could be discovered through social media stalking.
They identify with that ideology. So
Even if you listen to people who have seen the crime scene, it very much looks like Libby's injuries are very more prevalent and looks like she got the brunt of things more so than Abby. So that's the other thing that has me feeling like, regardless the reason, if it has anything to do with who her mother dated, that it does seem like Libby was absolutely like targeted and just brutally more so. I know it's like they both had their throats cut, but it just seems like from what we know, there was a lot more. And the fact that she's laid out there nude where Abby was redressed, it's just all very strange.
So it's very plausible. And I think, again, this is without seeing any of the evidence, not seeing other evidence. It is plausible to me.
Okay, fair enough. Our guests are great. They're staying with us. When we come back, we're going to ask this question. Was this a one-man? There's Richard Allen. The question is, did he do it by himself? Could one person have done this? The defense says no way. Take a look on the screen, folks. They say one man, 5'4" in stature, handled all these tasks, from the abduction at the High Bridge to the crossing over the cold flowing river to the subduing of one girl while the other is killed to the killing of the second girl, waiting while Abby died a slow death. Then clothing Abby with very little to any blood transfer on said clothing.
So here's the other thing too that leads me to think that it did happen. Either they were staged out there late at night or early morning, is the whole river aspect. Like during the day, again, I'm not there at the scene. I don't know everything about the layout, but him walking two girls across a river at gunpoint. I mean, it's just so open. Like it's vulnerable. What if somebody's dog was loose and they ran after the dog and then they see this going on at the river? What if somebody decided I want to fish over here? It's just very vulnerable for one person, even with a gun, in my opinion, to walk two girls, have them undress. Like, and did they undress themselves before going across the river? They must have, because there's clothes in the river, or, you know, all this stuff. We don't really know the exact order of operations, but it's fair to question the way that the defense is questioning. Like, so how did you think this one person did all this? And would it have been easier for them to walk them across at night where they don't risk anyone seeing them? I'm also, again, going through statements from people who have seen the images, and there are some people who say it looks as though Libby's hair is wet. They were found around noon. Would her hair still appear wet? Like if things were over and done with by 3:30, like they've quoted in the past? These are all things, obviously, we would need to look at the pictures ourselves and kind of figure out like what we could rely on as truth or what. But it's a reason why I feel like at night or early morning might have been the time that things took place. Because it's just so vulnerable. Even with, say one goes to run away, you set off the gun. Somebody could hear that gun. There were so many people out at the trail that day. There were reports of Libby running off through the water. What? I mean, I always thought that that was possible.
To the arrangement of the sticks into runes, to the painting of the F rune on the tree, to the throwing of the clothing items into the river, to the departure from the crime scene, and finally to traversing hundreds of yards through the forest and then up a steep hill and then another 100 or more yards until finally reaching 300 North, all the while being so careful as to not leave any DNA or other forensic evidence behind. Well, if two people did it, they didn't leave DNA behind either. So I'm not buying anything on that. But let's bring back in our guest, Dawn Perlmutter, ritual murder expert, Joseph Scott Morgan, forensic death investigator, and private investigator Lauren Vellucci. Joseph Scott Morgan, your thoughts, could one person have done all that the defense is saying was done here?
Well, I didn't know that height was a qualifier for that. They're really going out in the weeds on
Well,
that.
one reason they said that is they said the water could be 3.5 feet deep in the river, and he's only 5'4". I think that's one of the reasons.
There are other places the river could be forded. And so to me, the big thing here, though, is control. And how do you control someone, particularly two young girls like this? My thought is with a weapon. And, you know, we heard about the clicking of the weapon being actuated and that sort of thing. And one key here, Vin, is that they found a round, an unspent round, at the scene, which is a .40 caliber, actually, just like the one I'm holding. This is unspent, just like the one they found, but they're saying that there are striations on it. You know, there are a couple of laws on the books that I know, as you know, former prosecutor, you're very well.
I have to pause it just because he brought up the unspent bullet. People in chat have been talking about it. Why don't we have a clear story of who found the unspent bullet and when? I've heard it was law enforcement. I heard it was a citizen with a metal detector. I heard a searcher found it. I heard they planted it. So why don't we have like one part of this PCA or one part of this document and again, something criminality has pointed out, they don't even mention the bullet in Ron Logan's search warrant.
Where across the country, it's a term called menacing. And how do you menace someone? Well, if you've got young women, young girls like this, they're not expecting to be, encounter some monster out in the woods. Well, one of the ways you menace an individual to get them to comply is that if you're carrying a firearm, this is a dummy firearm that we use at JSU for training. But if it's a semi-automatic weapon, you charge the weapon like this, and it's a very intimidating sound, particularly to these young girls. Well, it's intimidating to me. And you present this weapon, and they're already in a.
I just have to pause it because we talked earlier about his appearance. Again, did he grow the goatee and gain weight to look different than the sketches or different from Bridge Guy? Something I want to ask you guys. Because look how completely different he looks. If you've seen an image of him from 2017, I'll try to find the picture of him at his daughter's wedding. Hold on.
A lost, cold place. Remember, down the hill. And he's directing them down there. If he's planned this thing out already, if he's got a location that he's going to, we know that they've recovered knives, these sorts of things. Maybe those limbs were trimmed. I have no idea. But he's perhaps nested in that area, just waiting for this opportunity. Yeah, this could be a one-man show. You're not talking, he's not dragging, an NFL lineman down there. All right, you're talking about two young girls that he's doing this to. Allegedly.
Lauren Vellucci, your thoughts. Could one person have done this?
I agree 100%. Absolutely. Per the defense's statement that he would have had an hour and 17 minutes, plenty of time. Brian Koberger, for instance, far less time. And we know that he allegedly slaughtered 4 people. So it is something that one person could have done. I think that the point that they may have some good information and some good reasonable doubt is the dressing of Abby and not getting blood. However, the river was right there. So did they wash off? I don't know. But to me, it makes a lot of sense that it was more than one person. And I think that is a real possibility. I think that there's a lot of truth in this new information more than falsehood. And it would explain the differences in sketches and how they looked so different as if there was multiple people that were seen.
Dawn Perlmutter, we have about less than a minute here. Your thoughts, one versus more than one person?
I think it could be either way. I think it could have been one person that they could intimidate the girls, and especially if they had planned it ahead of time, if they, whether they stumbled upon them or, were just had this in mind, fantasized about it for a long time, that it could be one person or it could be more than one. I think it's also interesting that it's near the river. That happens to be another significant thing that occurs with ritual murders. They tend to occur near bodies of water also.
Dawn Perlmutter, great to have you on tonight. Joseph Scott Moore.
And just thinking about some of the eyewitness statements and the one, how, a few of them were kind of interesting, but muddy and bloody, looked like he had just gotten in a fight. Does anybody mention he was sweaty? Does anyone say that he looked like he was working out or maybe he had just gotten done running? Because, you wouldn't just be able to... There's him at his daughter's wedding. This is before the murders. And then we've seen, again, it's just his profile. But to me, when you see his picture of him at his mugshot, that was how he was currently looking, like working at CVS with the goatee, and he gained all this weight. Those are just things that kind of stand out to me. Again, I'm not 100% either way. I think like he must be involved on some level. Like, again, I do think that the eyewitness statements with the PCA is kind of weak, but because I don't really trust eyewitness statements. But to me, even when you look at other images of him, he looks totally different from just right around the time of the murders. So it's like, is he bridge guy and he panicked and thought, I'm going to change my appearance? Or is he one of the sketches? And because like, look at his hair here. Kind of looks like it has like some wave or curl to it. Again, it doesn't look really too much like the young guy sketch. I seen somebody in chat say the young guy sketch was done by an amateur person. I don't know. That'd be interesting to kind of know, like, this, because the first sketch was FBI. All right, guys. So wait, did anyone say that anybody said anything about him looking sweaty? Because I feel like if you're staging a scene that way and you're using these sticks, they weren't twigs from what we've heard. They were, thicker branches. He looks like a loving father. He did. He definitely did. They got attacked in the water. It would explain the lack of blood. I definitely think that that's a possibility. I thought it was before Either way, you guys let me know the date of the daughter's wedding. He doesn't just fit a profile either, in my opinion. I agree. He doesn't look anything like either of those sketches, in my opinion, right? There was something I saw in my pictures. I think I've showed it before. Just how somebody honed in on only the eyes of the young guy sketch and then looked in at his eyes. I thought that that was kind of noteworthy. I thought it was a kind of a good comparison. Of course, I won't be able to find it again, but we've shared it in another stream. It's just his eyes. You know I'll find it as soon as I end the stream. Oh, and actually, I lied. His eyes and his nose from the young guy sketch. So, just interesting. Again, I'm not sold either way, but I thought that this was like, oh, okay. And that was a younger picture of him that was cut to use in this. He's wearing the baseball cap and he's hiking, I think, with his wife. Thought that was interesting, but all right, let's see. Was there anything else I wanted to share? I think that was it. Of course, there's more stuff I want to go through and talk with you guys, but we can obviously save it. We are still waiting on determinations with the judge and all that. So no point in even going down that discussion because we still are waiting on the courts for all that. But we discussed a lot of that in the last stream. All right, so I think that's going to be it. We'll do a live stream on Tuesday. We'll get back to our regular schedule, which is Tuesday and Friday nights. And I appreciate you guys being here. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. And we'll keep talking this case as well as other cases and jumping down other rabbit holes. I appreciate you guys being here with me. And thank you to everyone who has donated. And thank you to the new members. And just, yeah, thank you for hitting the like button even. So we'll talk soon, guys. Goodbye.